What's up, everybody? What's going on? Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Trader's Edge Crypto. My name is Lawton Ho here with Verified Investing, and I'm joined by Benjamin Poole and Drew Dosek. How's
What's up,
everybody
guys?
doing today?
Hello, everyone. Doing great. How you doing, Lawton?
Good. I'm doing great. Had some pretty exciting action in the crypto markets this past weekend. But before we get into that, we just want to thank our sponsor, Blowfin, for sponsoring us here with Verified Investing. They are the exclusive crypto exchange that we use. So if you want to go long, you want to go short crypto with us and use leverage up to 150 times, you can sign up by visiting the verifiedinvesting.com website and scrolling all the way down and clicking Blowfin in our sponsors. We're currently running a sign-up bonus where you could win some great prizes. So go ahead and check that out. And yep, it's right there. You can also scan that QR code right now. And this is good until tomorrow, it looks like. So if you deposit $500, you can always claim that $75 futures bonus. So you could even just use that $75 to play with and look at it as free money. But anyways, guys, let's get into the charts. Anything exciting? What's going on?
Yeah, well, I do have one thing I am looking at. We've got XRP. It's a little bit a ways from my entry. I have an entry here, basically at $3. It's 3.0025. I would be interested in going long on XRP with that. I'm going to go ahead and enter basically about 1/10 of the position with 5x leverage. So it'll be 1,400 XRP at 3.0025. It's a little bit of a ways away. However, I want to show you where I'm getting this from. So here we go. All right, there we go. So XRP on the 10-minute chart right here, you see an inclining trend line we've got from pivot low, like Lawton was mentioning over the weekend. Look at that, Saturday at 8:30 at night. XRP made a pivot low, and I've strung along a trend line connecting over here to this pivot. And if we get price coming down, it should be right around the $3 flat area. You can see right here, 3.019 is just a little bit of a pierce. Unsure that we're going to get that, but we do have an immature bear flag starting to form right here on XRP, which would imply a little bit of downside in the near term.
Yeah. What other things are you guys looking at? Ben, do you have anything, or Drew, do you have any other things that you're looking to potentially trade?
XRP is the only one that I've got. Ben, what do you have, sir?
I don't really have anything. So I'm looking at Tone USDT. It has a 15-minute bottoming tail. So if we're going to retrace, thanks for switching my charts. I appreciate that. So
is it Tone or Ton?
Ton. I don't know. However you want to say it. Ton. Yeah, I guess it doesn't have an E, so the O is an O.
It's like La Tone.
Yeah, Tone. Okay, so $3.35 is where I'm looking to enter TON USDT. TON. All right. That's
cool.
That's
cool.
Yeah, the only other one I have, Lawton, it's not even anywhere close, really. But at least I'll throw it out there in case we do get some movement. It's Uniswap, UNIUSD. It's going to have some good resistance up here at 1140. So we're a good ways away. We could get some resistance here, but honorable mention, if we get any sort of rip in the crypto space, that will be one I'm looking for on the upside to short.
Okay. Sounds good. And if you guys have questions and want to participate, ask us questions about cryptocurrency, just throw out charts for us to look at or anything else, you can do so exclusively on the Verified Investing website. You can go to our verifiedinvesting.com homepage, click watch and ask, and should be good to go. All right. So if we don't have anything yet, I'm going to go into the questions if you guys don't mind. First question is, this deep in crypto, is this a change from an uptrend trend to a downtrend? So basically, is crypto heading into a downtrend?
It could be. It's too early to tell. It's too early to tell from what I would say. And the main reason for that is what I've got on my screen here with Bitcoin. You can see here we did have this bullish consolidation that has now since turned over, but we've now caught support at the first area that would likely give a bounce on Bitcoin. And if you notice here, I've got this inclining trend line right here. Price broke out, confirmed, flagged and is now retracing where it broke out. So that's all that's going on here. It doesn't mean that Bitcoin's chart is broken. It doesn't mean that yet. Now we could easily have price come down here and then start testing this 108, and then now this pattern will change because this breakout would have failed. But until this breakout confirms and fails underneath that trend line, you can't say definitively like that now that we're in a downturn. You certainly can say we've got headwinds facing us, no doubt about it, with these tariffs and some of the uncertainty. Lawton just mentioned this morning that the EU apparently is finalizing some of their
a 6-month delay in the tariffs on the United States.
Yep. So with that uncertainty, it's not necessarily finalized yet. And really, I don't think we're going to get a complete finalization, something that the investors are really wanting to see, because I think this could always be, almost like a shaping clay, like a molding clay, something that's going to continually be adjusted over time.
So that's a good analysis, True. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to share my charts real quick. So here's what I have on Bitcoin. I went over this actually in my video to the members. So you got this pivot low at $74,000. You have this other secondary pivot at 98,000. So you draw a trend line connecting those two pivots, and look at what happened right here. It hit this upsloping trend line perfectly, and this was on the back of this nice sell-off. And look at where it tagged. It hit exactly to the previous all-time high before this surge up. So a retest to the scene of the crime is where it's likely to bounce. So this is a lot of support. This was the third hit in this fun trend line game that we play. So if this upsloping trend line breaks, then you've got this downsloping trend line that it's likely to come back down and hit. And you see this pivots right here. This would be your next level of support. If it breaks this support level, it's going to $100,000 or $101,000, just below. So these are the next support levels. But right now, anytime we're in an uptrend, we got to support. I mean, we got to respect these upsloping trend lines. So for the time being, as long as Bitcoin can hold this support level, we are still technically in an uptrend, even though we're heading lower. This is just kind of par for course with the markets. You have these nice big up moves and then some pullbacks. And so this could be just a standard pullback once it broke this previous all-time high. So we'll have to wait and see what the trend line or what the trend lines tell us. So, cool. Yeah.
All right. I don't have any more questions as of now, guys. Again, if you want to ask questions, you can do so exclusively on the verifiedinvesting.com website. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Anything you saw?
Yeah, here, let's take a look at some stuff.
Okay, I got you.
All right, so thank you. Hey, so here's, you can tell I've got a lot of information here on this chart. I'm going to go ahead and clean it up a little bit so we can go step by step of what's going on. You can see here on XLM, we had a huge move up. Now, XLM in essence is kind of like a cousin of XRP. XLM focuses more on individuals and the unbanked folks in developing countries, people that, or they say they just don't have a bank account, they can access some XLM and exchange cryptocurrency and also exchange funds relatively quickly. XRP really focuses more on institutions, much larger money transfers like money wires. However, it's supposed to be faster than money wires and cheaper. So anyway, so XLM, you can see here, huge move up that we had in July, this massive increase here, over 100%, and has since started to unwind a little bit. Notice this formation too. We have a declining shaped bull flag that's forming here on the chart of XLM. Now we have retraced a significant amount. You can see we've dropped down now about 30% and have caught support right here. All in all, price is still trying to fight to stay in this declining wedge that you see here on the chart. I'll delete that too so you can kind of see it right there. Price got out of it for a couple days, then has since returned back in and is getting sold off right down here. It'll be interesting to see where price closes at the end of the day. If we're able to close out above this declining trend line, that would be positive near term for XLM USD, currently above one of these levels of support at 40 cents. So nice move and recovery here, at least in the near term of XLM. But I back out and you can see a little bit more of what's happening here on the chart. We've got a beautiful inverse head and shoulders pattern that had a measured move at 45 cents. It already was accomplished at this big 100% move up, but ultimately these patterns can have price retest the neckline. So if you're an investor and a bull in XLM and say you have gotten in already, say at one of these support levels, you need to be keeping in the back of your mind that price could still come down to this neckline. This neckline is all the way down here at 27 cents currently, and it continues to decline the longer time it takes for price to get in there. So watch out on XLM, but XLM has some really good upward potential. As long as you incorporate a strategy with going with multiple adds into the position, this could turn out to be a really nice play for a long on XLM USD.
I like it. I like that wedge. I know Dr. B's happy to see that.
Yep. Special wedge for Doc there. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually looking at MNT. So it's Mantle. So here is this beautiful upsloping trend line. It's had this nice rally today. It's up over 20% on the day. So I may be interested in going short on this. If we can get back up towards the double top at 86.21, or may even start a little bit sooner. But good push up on this. It needs to break this upsloping trend line. Just like I was mentioning on Bitcoin, right? If we don't have a break above this trend line, I mean below this trend line, then we're still in an up move or an up move. We're bullish on MNT, but look at this RSI. It's staying above 70. That shows you how strong this thing is today. And so it need another push up, create some negative RSI divergence. So look for a pierce of double top, and I would look to enter MNT on a short.
Cool.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I got a question here from Blaine. Looking for an Ethereum short, where do you guys see support and resistance?
Sure. Let's take a look. All right. I got Ethereum up here on my chart.
I got you.
Put it over here. There we go. All right. So on the daily chart, you can see Ethereum here. And here, let me knock this out. Ethereum is now struggling right around this declining trend line, right? We broke and confirmed. Now we broke and confirmed beneath. And now we're attempting to break out again up above. So there's a couple different levels of areas to short. If you're more longer term investor, I would wait to be a little bit more conservative right up here near the 4,100 level. You see 4,078. If you're a little bit more aggressive, you can start shorting right here, basically at $3,750. If we get a straight move up into this area, this is going to be a lot of chop in resistance on the charts. That could yield a pullback at minimum down here to this inclining trend line. It all depends on really if we confirm above tomorrow. And if we confirm above tomorrow, the most aggressive stance for a short on Ethereum would be there. More conservative entry would be right around 4,100 at $4,078. Please note, these things can change as far as the levels and the strength of the levels. And what do I mean by that? And what I mean is that if you have price consolidate under a level, that weakens the level of resistance. So you'll have to watch pattern. You want to see pattern of the price move straight up into a resistance area like what we see here, July 16th, this move up on Ethereum. Notice that we came and poked above this resistance trend line, then ultimately retraced right back down to it. So we came back down roughly about $300 on Ethereum with this extended move. If we get consolidation underneath a level, it likely can still break higher and go above it. So you have to be prepared for that too. So there's a game plan. The most aggressive level is going to be here, $3,750. And then that would then dictate that we confirmed above this trend line, and a take profit conservative level would be price retracing to that trend line. More conservative, 4,100 for you on Ethereum.
Thank you, Drew. Good question there from Blaine. Again, guys, if you have more questions for us, feel free to go to the verifiedinvesting.com homepage and leave your questions there. All right, Drew. So how's your trade looking? Your potential trade
for XRP is still hanging out there. You can see here, XRP USD is still trading right here at 302. So we haven't come quite down low enough to get to that $3 flat area. And if I flip over here to Blowfin, you can see we're roughly about the same. Now, please note with both Blowfin, we are trading futures in order to access this leverage.
The shorts.
Yeah, and shorts, most importantly with shorts. So good thing is, though, for XRP, you see price now starting to break $3.02, price coming down ever so slightly. So we're less than 2 cents away, guys. Now a nice sell-off there on XRP, now down significantly under $3.02.
All right. So next question. Brandon says, SUI has been performing great this alt cycle. Do you think that we'll get another buy the dip opportunity? And where do you see the ultimate upside for SUI?
Yeah, I do. I think SUI can get another bid. And the main reason for it is because we do have this declining trend line price broke out of. Now we then since have come back under. So this is the line in the sand that I have for SUI to go higher. Currently tested it today, $3.54. So that's what I would monitor there for SUI. And guys, just flipping back to XRP coming down quite nicely. $3 is basically my entry, $3.25. But yeah, so back to SUI real quick. SUI, if we're able to have SUI break price just above this declining trend line, that will open the door for further movement up with SUI. We're going to have to fight through this resistance, this consolidation. Basically, a $4 target would be attainable should we get above this declining trend line right here. It's currently priced at $3.49.
Okay, cool. Martin's asking if you guys use level 2 data when trading crypto. Not really, right?
What was the question?
Do you use level 2 data when trading crypto?
No, I don't.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
Is that available? I don't think it's readily available in the same way.
Correct.
There's so many different exchanges, right?
We have, you have this order book right here. That is intriguing. You can see the level and volumes associated with each price point. But
I'm not sure if that's just Blowfin or what, because this is specifically futures, not spot.
That's a good point, Lawton. And each exchange is going to have their own volume, right? They're going to have their own level twos. So this without the regulation, with it being a widespread exchange, I don't utilize level 2 on crypto. And I rarely do it on stocks too. Stocks, it used to have a lot of weight and power behind it when you could see when all of the orders couldn't be hidden. For example, an institution now, say if they want to unload 1 million shares, they can have it load up in the system as if it's just 100 shares. And then as soon as that 100 gets filled, another 100 automatically appears. And then as soon as that 100 gets filled, another 100 automatically appears, and so forth until they're able to fill their orders. So level 2 is not as valuable as what it used to be.
Got it. Good question, Martin. Jeremy says, looks like AVAX broke the down sloping trend line for December 2024. Do we have confirmation of an uptrend?
Let me check AVAX. Confirmation of an uptrend? I mean,
or the beginning of an uptrend? I don't know.
All right. So I don't know. Let me see if my charts are showing. All right. Here's my AVAX chart. This is on the daily time frame. So we did have this break of this downsloping trend line, which catapulted AVAX higher. The problem is we got above this high pivot, but then got rejected pretty significantly. So as long as we can stay above this upsloping trend line, let me go ahead and draw this in for you guys. So here's a upsloping trend line that you're looking for price to stay above, right? Let me see if I've got any other additional levels. So yeah, let's take this pivot right here. So this would be kind of your line in the sand. If you break this, then you've got a downslope. Then you've got potential for further downside. At the moment, you do have this downsloping trend line here, but you have some additional resistance that's going to come up quite a bit higher. So if you're looking long-term on AVAX, can it go higher? Absolutely. We just have to recapture this high pivot at 27.45. If we can recapture that, then you've got another move higher. I think a lot of this is going to really be dependent on what Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin can maintain that upsloping trend line in a bullish consolidation, bullish pattern, then AVAX and the rest of the altcoins can actually move higher. At the time being, though, AVAX looks to have sold off decently, so it's got a lot of work to do to recapture that high pivot. So there's no confirmation necessarily that it's definitely going to go higher. Everything revolves around Bitcoin, and that's kind of what we have to play. We have to play Bitcoin. We can play the altcoins, but into support and resistance. So,
agreed. All right. Gunnar says, "Hi team, would you mind reviewing TAO and Pengu and providing your insights on its current development? Thanks."
Yeah, I'll tackle TAO. I know I've got some interest in that coin. All right, so for Tau. All right, Tau, you can see here, has gotten a beautiful bounce. You can see there's a series, it's like a fan. There's a series of trend lines that Tau is fighting to break higher through. This one trend line that Tau got a bounce on from August 2nd was from this trend line from a pivot high on May 22nd, connected over to the next major pivot on May 31st. And then I just continue that trend line out, as you see here on the charts. So we had a beautiful fall right down here into support, and Tau has since bounced back up. This immediate bounce where I'm watching for it to go is this other trend line created from the pivot high on May 12th, strung over to the next pivot. You can see right there, this is the area where price will likely go if we have positive momentum in altcoin, in the altcoin space. Looking up roughly around $392 for that trend line. And that trend line declines over time. So we're going to be coming down to around 388, 387 if we extend this out to next week into Monday, August 11th. So be watching that area, this trend line coming down. Since we've already tagged it once, what you don't want to see as a Bittensor bull is you don't want to see consolidation down here in this range, because that could imply that we could make newer lows from this pivot that occurred here in June. So this is a critical time here for Tau, because Tau also has the potential for an inverse head and shoulders pattern. This right area, this shoulder is starting to get distorted a little bit. Look how nice and clean this left shoulder is right here. And you could even argue this whole area right here is a left shoulder. So now we're starting to get quite extended on the right-hand side. If we do get a break above that neckline, this is more longer term, that inverse head and shoulder has a potential target up here above $800. So Tau is basically at a very big critical crossroads. Do we make lower lows than this right shoulder, this shoulder low here in June, or do we continue bouncing up at the support that's listed here? So be paying close attention to these trend lines, take a picture of it, and be watching and monitoring how price reacts on these support and resistance levels that you see on the chart.
Cool.
Now, Ben, you got another chart? Yeah.
Pengu,
so Pudgy Penguins. All right, here's the chart of Pudgy Penguins. This thing, the problem is you don't have a lot of data, right? So it came out in February of 2025. So at least what I'm seeing, this is the Coinbase chart. So this is the information I have. So you did have this nice top right here. So 46.62. That is a great resistance level. So if it heads back up, this would be a great opportunity for an entry for a short position. Right now, this could be a really terrible head and shoulders pattern, right? So you've got this awkward shoulder, head. If it puts in another shoulder, then what's likely to happen is we're going to have a rollover in Pudgy Penguins. And here would be the measured move on this. Let's take this guy where it would break. So you would be looking for 15.84 for the downside potential target. If this forms a shoulder, as you can see, you got first hit, second hit, third hit. This is kind of the same hit. So comes back up, This would be the fourth hit of this trend line. The more often a trend line is hit, the weaker it becomes. The weaker it is, then you're likely to flush through. So that's what I have. I don't really have any additional information as far as like any uptrends. So yeah, Drew, do you see anything else?
On Pudgy Penguins? No, I haven't really gone deep into that chart. I know we had a great winner in our swing trading service. I think Gareth took it for a short, and Pudgy Penguins turned out pretty nice.
So if you're a bull on this, you do have first hit, second hit, third hit. Now we're above it. What you want to look for is a close above and then a continuation move. So essentially, if it closes above 38.07, then you can push higher. But right now, again, it's this support level looks to becoming weaker and weaker. And so once that happens, once that breaks, then you're going to have a fall to the downside. And it really depends on your outlook or your horizon. Like, are you a long-term bull for Pudgy Penguin? Then you could look at entering at 23.35. You got this nice shelf right here. So you get this high of a green bar candle and then the low of a green bar candle. So in this area, you're going to have a lot of support. And then if it drops, you have this high pivot right here at 17.38, corresponds with this pivot before a bull flag formed, before this nice move to the upside. But that's really all the information I have currently on Pudgy Penguin. It is pretty strong though. Let's see if this trend line. Yeah, you see how this was support? This was a support trend line. It was never really resistance. So once we get back below it, it should act as resistance and then push the price lower. So that's what I have.
Got you.
Beautiful.
Cool. Miguel's asking, is there head and shoulders on the Doge USD daily chart? What are we seeing on Doge?
Let's take a look.
All right, go ahead, Drew.
All right. The Doge chart. Look at this thing. All right. Potential inverse head and shoulders.
Is that what he said? Inverse head and shoulders?
It says head and shoulders.
Well, head and shoulders. Did it say what time frame? Here, let's see.
On
shoulders
the
on daily chart.
Yeah.
I don't see a head and shoulders on the daily. No. We've been trying to break out. You can see there's an inverse head and shoulders here, and it's a funky looking right shoulder. You could also claim, no, it's not really fitting it that way either. What I mainly see here though with Doge, okay, so you can basically this trend line I think is the most important. We've got the declining trend line. It's the longest term trend line. Now keep in mind with that too, the longer term trend lines or the longer time frame patterns usually have all the power. They have the override capabilities from shorter time frame patterns. So this pattern with connecting this declining trend line over to this pivot has shown that price is now broken out of Doge, right? All price beforehand has been kept under this trend line. Now price is broken out, and we've simply retraced to the scene of the crime on that same trend line right there, and have since gotten a bounce up. So with that being said, the near-term bounce target is going to be on this declining trend line right here, where you see price stuttered before it continued its fall back down to this trend line kiss. So then that way right here would be the near-term target for Doge at 0.23 cents. So at 23 cents. So, but if you look at this potentially is starting. Now we're many steps away. So I don't, I'm not going to be able to draw anything to give you any target, but notice how we've got a little pivot and low here. We have price come up here and get rejected and then create a right shoulder. Then you would have an inverse head and shoulder over here, but there is no, it's a really sharp inclining. If you would try to call it as a head and shoulder right here, I don't really see that being as good as a pattern. What about you, Ben? I see the break here that could take us all the way down here to this inclining trend line, which then too would make sense. So these trend lines are by far the most important on this chart of Doge. If you are a Doge bull, this is the line in the sand on the bottom side that you just don't want it to get taken out. And it's slightly above this low that was made in June 22nd. So you see that roughly 15 cents. I mean, you could argue you do have a head and shoulders right there. But what's keeping it from getting to target is this incredible breakout that's occurred and is since now getting support. We'll see if that support fails. If so, the target for that major move would be down here, which could be a great buying opportunity, especially if price decreases into it very sharply. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I like that longer term upsloping trend line that you have. If you extend that out all the way here, if you switch to my charts.
I got you.
All right. So you had the trend line that goes from this low pivot to this low pivot as far as support. But if you extend it out, it even goes all the way down back to August 5th of 2024. So as you can see, this is some pretty major support. Like Drew was mentioning, if you are a long-term bull on Doge, you want to make sure that it stays above this upsloping trend line. So what Drew typically does for his service, because he's got the hodler service, is he'll enter a trade for a long term and add on the way down. He gets a bounce. He'll remove half of it and hold the rest for a longer term position. And the reason he takes a profit is so that way, if it re-dips, he can enter that again, right? So then he doesn't have to say, oh my gosh, I've got my entire portfolio in there, and every time it goes up or down, I'm freaking out because, oh, is this the moment it's going up? Or, you know, is this the moment that I'm going to lose all my money? So he'll diversify his portfolio, take profits, take half off the table, take half off the table. So dollar cost average out, and then same thing on the way down. So if you want to follow along with what he does, you know, you can always join the service, and he does everything through Coinbase. So you should be able to take every single one of his trades. So
yeah, what's so cool about that approach, Ben, is that, you know, when price retreats, I'm excited to get some more, right? You know, it's not like that feeling that you may have if you're over leveraged and you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm down 20%. I look at that as like a big sale sign that's going over a lot of these cryptocurrencies. I'm monitoring these levels on a longer term basis, and the ability to, and I think a lot of investors have a really tough time figuring out when to take profit, right? You know, because they hear, especially 5 years ago, they hear, you know, Dogecoin to the moon, you know, GMC to the moon, AME to the moon. But these stocks nor cryptocurrencies really go to the moon. There's going to be pullbacks on the way up, just like there's going to be bounces on the way down. So as long as we know that this is the game that and how it's played, we can accumulate more of these cryptocurrencies at key support levels in the hodler service. And then when price action goes up, say 50 to 100%, I'll start unloading some of those, because ultimately we'll have a pullback. And then we'll just start reloading again. It's really a delicate dance, but ultimately holding on to some of the portion of those positions in case we do have a moon blast, which is, you know, beyond rare. But at least if that occurs, we still have good stake in those positions and we'll profit on those moves. So yeah, it's really, you know, with that being said, Ben, there's so many different ways to trade, not only cryptocurrencies, but invest, you know, but this hodler approach is one that I think is what a lot of individual retail investors are doing, but they just don't have the expertise to know when to pull the trigger to get out of some of their position to reduce their exposure, and at least also pocket some money in your portfolio. This game ultimately is to make us money. So if you don't know when to hit that sell button, you ultimately will never be making money in your portfolio. It just may uptick or downtick every day with the value, but you want to be growing that portfolio every single day and every trade if you can make it where you have profits. So that's my strategy with the hodler. We've already gained. We've already had some beautiful 40, 50% gains. And over this last weekend, I was buying more. I was buying more when these key levels were hit. Now, is this the end all bounce and we're going to go to new all-time highs? You know, that's uncertain. But at key levels of support, I'm going to be loading up. I'm going to be buying more and putting ourselves in the right position, even with some of the coins that aren't stakeable. That way I can swing trade those more freely, and then we can continually stack profits at these key levels of support.
Yeah. So anytime you guys ask a question, it's really all dependent on your overall time horizon with these particular trades or levels that we go over.
Got you. I think, Ben, you can answer this pretty quickly. Do you ever confirm crypto levels with the fib?
What do you mean confirm crypto levels with the fib?
Do you use? I'm assuming he's asking if you use the fib tool, Fibonacci retraces to find levels for cryptocurrency.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Yes.
There are
Quick
so many
answer is
different. They're so volatile, these altcoins, that I usually look for, depending on the strength of the particular altcoin that I'm looking at. I use the 786 or sometimes the 886 fib retracement for either re-entries or add levels to my positions. They have proved to be really powerful tools, especially when you get wild movers. And here, let's take a look at Mana, for example. Mana is a great tool to use. So if you can identify a pivot low, pivot high, look at this. Anywhere between the 786 and the 886 Fibonacci retracement usually is a pretty good buying opportunity for an altcoin, especially if you have a wild mover like for example, again, Mana. And so, yes, critical. I use them all the time, but it's not just that, right? So as you can see, it did break below the 786 fib retracement, but look at also what you have. You have this pivot low right here. And so this provides a great opportunity for an entry price. Yep. And then you know that you've minimized the amount of loss that you have if you put a stop out at a close below this low pivot that you took the fib extension from. And then you can just kind of let your profits run on that on the upside. So your risk to reward is pretty great on that. Yeah.
Yeah. The fibs, they really help reaffirm a lot of the technical analysis we've already done on the chart and showing you, like, just like what Ben did when he layered the fibs, he found those other pivot areas, and that confirmed his thesis of explaining in between the 886 and the 786 fib retrace. Like it's just it helps. Yep. And if you, say, let's flip the coin and say you don't even have that knowledge, right, of the technical analysis, you don't have your eyes trained yet to spot some of these levels like Ben just did. The fibs help get you there. They help show you that this should be a good level. But then at that point, you start to build the pieces backwards and start saying, okay, well, where else is there support? Where else at this level, this does make sense or it doesn't make sense? And then, let's do that. This is a really good exercise with fibs. And especially, let's look at Doge, what I just looked at. So this Doge move from the pivot low, June 22nd, to this pivot high, July 21st. Look at that pullback right here into the 618, and then has since bounced. If you didn't know anything about this declining trend line, you could see the 618 retrace at 19.8 cents. And you can look over here on the left and say, oh, look at all that consolidation that occurred here. And oh, look, here's more pivots here too. And then go back further, more pivots, and then flip it around. This area was support when it first had price come back down most recently. So that tells me there's a lot of stuff going on right here at this 618. So, the fibs help you find those levels and in a way kind of confirm your thesis. But you notice here, they don't work on a dime, especially with cryptos, they're going to pierce. They're likely to pierce more so than I'd say in stocks. And this is a good example of that, how this level at 19 cents, ultimately the low on Doge was 18.85 cents. So it pierced it by a decent chunk and then has since bounced back up. So the fibs are critical. I think I use them often, if not every single day, to find and help isolate different levels.
Cool. Gunner's asking, as someone who's still new to this market, I'm interested in understanding why you choose to use partial stops rather than trailing stops. What does that mean, partial stops? I'm not sure what that means. He means by partial stops. Maybe he's talking about stop outs instead of trailing stops.
Maybe.
Or no, he's talking about, I understand. He's asking, why do we add TP levels, one half here, one half more in the money, instead of just using a trailing stop?
Well, here's an example. Let's go to Mana, for example.
I got you.
Let's say that you had an upside target of 44.94. Okay. This is a nice resistance area. Or you even had an upside target of this low pivot right here at 41.42. All right, let's say you did a trailing stop. All right, awesome. You got stopped out right here, depending on how big your how big of a range you're giving yourself. So not only did you not hit your upside target, but you could have gotten stopped out. I mean, this is a decent pullback, right? 18%. I mean, how wide is your stop out level on a trailing stop basis, right? You could have even got to this level, and then all of a sudden, if you have a 12% pullback, then you're capitalizing on just this small amount. Whereas you can set your take profit and then you exit at a 50% gain, right? Or let's say that you had your take profit here and your trailing stop is break even and you entered right here at 23.16. Now all of a sudden, not only did you not take profit, but you stopped out. So there's a lot of different ways you can play it. Some people use trailing stops at their break even or below low pivots, but then you've got to determine whether or not you take that trade or where you put your stop. So sometimes it's just easier to identify a resistance level and put your take profit there, or just determine, all right, well, I want 25 or 30 or 50% on this particular altcoin, wait for a pullback and I can re-enter it and then trade it again. So there's no one right way or wrong way to do it.
And trailing stops are tough because unlike stocks, they're a little more volatile, right? So if your stop out level is too tight, you're likely to miss the move, just like Ben said.
Yeah.
So it's like, and if your stop loss is too wide, you miss out on potential. Like he just showed that small dip looks small on the chart. That's 11%. You missed out on 11% of profit, or whatever it was. All right. We have time for one more question.
Okay.
So Alex says, hey guys, can you look at virtual and STX, please? Especially some adding zones for DCA. I am long with 5 times leverage, on virtual with an average of 1.355. Where should I add? And then STX is 0.78 average.
All right. Well, what I'm about to tell you is not financial advice. Please do your own research on this. Okay. So I just wanted to make that clear before I go into this chart. So here is a support level. You've got this long-term upsloping trend line that goes back to the 7th of October. Here's your secondary hit. This is where you draw your trend line. So if it gets down into the $66 or $67.30, $66.78 level is going to be some support. Before that level, you have this high pivot at 82. 82.90 is a nice pivot area. As you can see, there's a lot of support there. Above that, you have this support level at 97.42. And then you have the luxury of the $1 even number pierce. And so if it flushes that level, then 97.42 would be a great possible add level. I know, at least for me, what I do on virtual is add every 40 to 50 cent or percent out of the money. So I was actually in this trade, and I had an average started at like 142, and then it got 40 to 50% away from me. I doubled my position. It got away from me again. I doubled my position, but I was strategic about it. So every time you add 50%, especially on an altcoin like virtual, it gives you an opportunity to add half of the amount of shares, but bring your average price down by half. And so the amount of portfolio that you're reallocating to it is very small compared to the last ad that you did. So eventually we ended up making a decent profit on virtuals. It had a great push up, as you can see, but now it's looking bearish. So the nice thing about virtuals is it has pierced the 30 on the RSI. So it gives it some support. And then if you notice over here, you've got all this price consolidation. So you have this low pivot that you need to get back above and stay above. But look at all this price consolidation right before this breakdown. That means that now that price has gotten back into this level, you should have a significant amount of support. But because all the support is here, it could also go to the lower end of the support level.
Yep.
So
I agree with that. It's neat how you've got some analysis, and mine is very similar to yours, but it shows it in a different light. And I guess we can just end with this and move on. But just like what Ben was saying, and just to back up too, what we did an exercise with the fibs, right, guys? So why not do a fib retrace on the daily? Fib retrace from pivot high to fib down low. So that tells us, and actually here, shoot, let me change this up. So fib sorry, there it is. There, that's what I wanted to get. So fib retrace from the top to the bottom. And you see here this move up, pierced the 382, reattempted to break through the 382, kept failing. Then actually here, this is what I think is more important for this chart. And Ben highlighted, like, basically the low end is exactly 100% right. But then what Virtual is trying to do is trying to break out of this declining trend line. And it confirmed here, but has since then retraced and now failed. So it's a failed breakout, right? But ultimately it's into this support right here that Ben highlighted. So it's into a lot of support, and it could go down as far as this lower level, 96 cents, 95 cents, and still be considered right there in that support level. And if it does and ends up breaking that, then the next support is 82. But ultimately, I'd be watching this trend line. Like, what is price going to do on this declining trend line? If we do break out again and say retrace and get a springboard effect bounce off of that, then we're probably headed towards this inclining trend line right here. And notice how price, when I strung it together from pivot to pivot, price just stalled out right here and really trailed this, created a bear flag, and then broke. So I think that this is a legit upward target in the near to midterm, granted we break out of this declining trend line. So this trend line is what I would be watching if I were in Virtual.
Cool.
But it's all the same stuff. It's so neat how you can add that element, Ben, and then I can add this element, and it really just encompasses fully what the potentials are for Virtuals in the near to midterm. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have more questions, I'm going live in 12 minutes. so for my AMAs, you can ask them there. But anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us again. My name is Lawton Ho, joined by
Benjamin Poole. Please like and subscribe. Hit that bell.
And Drew Dosek.
Notifications.
And Drew Dosek. All right, guys. Have a great day.
Sorry.
I'll see you
Give
later.
us a thumbs up, guys. See you guys later. Take care.
Take care.